All right, our first official block of 2023, crazy to say. This is gonna be open and quarterfinals prep. So just to preface this, our open dates are February 16th through March 6th. When you guys register, if you put Cowboy Way Athlete as your affiliate or as your gym, if you don't have a brick and mortar one you go to, that would be sweet. Would love to have a big leaderboard full of all you guys. Then the quarterfinals are March 16th through April 2nd. That will actually be in a separate block, but we're definitely going to be, thank you dogs. But we're definitely going to be kind of entering into quarterfinals prep as well for those of you guys that do make that. And then for the rest of us that don't make that, it's still great practice to be able to get to do those. So you guys can pretty much plan on whether you make it or not. We're doing quarterfinals. It's great practice for this. Speaking of practice, the NorCal Classic. This is an online qualifier event, and then the actual event itself is in September in Sacramento, California. But Dave Castro is programming the online events, and it's great practice to do before the open of an online setup. So I'm gonna have everybody do this NorCal Classic qualifier. So we'll be doing that as part of our training, and I'll have those events programmed into our actual fitness. So those of you guys that are doing the event, like signing up and actually wanting to compete, it'll be programmed into your training. And those of you guys that are not, it's still amazing practice, especially pre-open, to have that online setup. And then programmed by Dave is also a big perk to be able to get to practice that stuff. So during this block, this is really straightforward. Our main concept is to be getting ready for the open in these quarterfinals. So in the past block, we really pushed our deadlift and our squat and our push press, and then we've also pushed our clean and our snatch. So in this block, we're not necessarily trying to bring our peak numbers up for any one given lift, because then we have to take other stuff to the wayside. In this block, we're actually taking our Metcons first and then kind of letting everything fall apart and then integrate into the Metcon. So all of our implements here, weightlifting, aerobics, strength, and gymnastics, those are gonna be really tied into a Metcon setting. So in our gymnastic movements, we're gonna be focusing on a lot of the classic movements that we do see in the open. And historically, toes to bar, chest to bar, double unders, handstand push-ups. Those have been our main staples in the open as far as gymnastic movements go. So we're gonna have a lot of those, and we're gonna do reopen, retest. I won't 100% commit to one every single week that's an actual past open workout, but most weeks you will see a past open workout. Speaking of that, is next week we are actually doing 16-1, and then we're doing a open style workout that I actually wrote on for a Saturday. So during these, there's gonna be one workout a week where I ask you to really treat it as a flat out open workout, and if possible, to have a buddy judge you and actually having someone there that's counting your reps and making sure and no repping you if you actually do a shitty rep, and keeping you on track, and just that kind of added pressure. And then practice videoing it. One of the things that's a big next step to competing is figuring out how to get good at the art of competing. So how do you set up your camera? Where do you do it? How do you set up the whole floor so that you can have everything in the camera? That's all stuff that we want to practice, and we're going to get to practice that during this block. So it'll be notated in your training and say, hey, this is as an open workout. Also, when we do these past open workouts, I'm going to ask you guys to pick what you would do in the actual open. So if we're doing an open retest, always during our training, I always say, hey, this is how the weight should feel. This is how many you should be able to do in a row and that stuff. During these, we're just gonna straight up pretend it's the open, and you kind of have to pick, am I doing RX or am I doing scaled? So it's a different feel for everybody, but we also do want to get specific practice for that. GHD volume. This is something that is gonna be more so for those of you guys that are hoping to go to quarterfinals, but in quarterfinals in the previous years, there's been some very high volume GHD that if you're not ready for can be super actually dangerous and debilitating. So we're gonna build our way up and get really conditioned to GHDs, especially paired with rope climbs. We have a great one next week that is a gnarly one of that. But so there's that, and then wall facing handstand push-ups. This is something that was a gremlin that was brought out in the CrossFit Games last year, and actually a lot of extremely high level, obviously games athletes, had issues with that. And I have a feeling we could see that come back into the programming this year. So we're gonna be practicing some wall facing handstand push-ups. I actually have a workout program where it's a wall walk, and at the top of the wall walk, you wall facing handstand push-ups. It's pretty cool. I'm really excited for that, but we'll definitely get exposure here. In our strength department, high volume deadlifts. This is something that is every year in the open, there's high volume deadlifts. And if that's the same thing, it's something that if you're not conditioned to, dogs, put a cork in it. If you're not conditioned to that, can really leave you absolutely wrecked. So we will be doing high volume deadlifts weekly during this in a Metcon setting, but we won't necessarily, that means we won't be focusing on those outside of Metcon nearly as much. We'll be getting some other pulling volume from actually our Olympic lifting and like snatch pulls and clean pulls. It has specific carryover to that, but it's less total load. And then high volume squatting, we obviously in the open, that's something that we see a lot. So our squatting here isn't going to necessarily have a direct focus of like, hey, we need to improve this squat exactly. We're just going to be making sure to hit heavy squatting of every sort, overhead squatting, front squatting, back squatting, because you never know what they're going to throw at us for that max lift. Same thing with the weightlifting. Not trying to push our 1 reps here, but we're getting our volume tolerance to having heavy lifts in a Metcon setting or after a Metcon. So we've seen that every year. There's either been a heavy barbell that gets progressively heavier throughout a long Metcon and you have to earn your way to the heavy weights, or there's a Metcon, then a rest period, and then a max lift after. So we'll get exposure to both of those setups. And then also lots of high volume barbell cycling with typical open weights, like 95 and 65, 135 and 95 for pretty much every movement you can think, and 115 and 75. We'll be doing lots of light barbell cycling with those movements. Aerobically, lots of this is going to come from, we're going to be doing quite a few in the realm of 20-minute year 2.5 to year 3 Metcons, where you're on the gas pedal for 20 minutes solid. We'll be doing that in a CrossFit setting, and then obviously in an interval setting or in a specific monostructural setting. And then we'll keep our heart rate based CrossFit in. This is something that if you guys haven't got a heart rate monitor yet, I would highly encourage you to get one. These heart rate based CrossFit pieces aren't ever exact. You can't hold your heart rate exactly the same during these pieces, but this is great practice for you to figure out how to regulate your breathing and keep really calm and have your heart rate be as low as possible while executing high heart rate CrossFit movements. So it's a great skill to have to be able to really regulate your output and find your most efficient movement patterns and breathing patterns. And then as always, we'll have our zone 2 aerobic, the Thursdays, long row, bike, swim, run, all that type of stuff. So this block is going to be awesome. The open's going to be great. If you guys are in the area, you are 100% welcome to come out here to the brick and mortar location at CrossFit Power Stroke and do the open workouts with us, obviously free of charge. We are also going to be doing some open simulation days out here. So if you guys are in the area, you're not going to want to miss that. They're going to be a fucking riot. So I'm looking forward to this block. Can't wait to see you guys on that.